live. This Hangout on air is live. Okay, I think we're good. So, hey everybody, this is Dan O'Donnell. This is OD on Life, episode number 17. And today I've got Beck Power. She's here. She is the founder of nomadfly.me, like .me. And she is, tell me if you have a better way to describe it, Beck, but a flight hacker, a former travel agent, and someone who travels a lot herself, I believe. Is that about right?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Cool. And I just signed up, maybe 2 or 3 days ago for Beck's program. And what it is I believe I'm going to start getting emails real soon here. I'm in a Facebook group, and I've got access to her in that group to ask questions about how to get the best deals on travel. And honestly, I've already gotten my money's worth. I actually haven't booked anything yet, but I've found some deals better than any deals I've ever found before. And I'm not new to searching for flights. So there were just some little things that I wasn't doing that made a really huge difference. And they're not complicated. It didn't take me a long time to learn it or anything. So there were some really valuable tips in there. And I'm sure we'll get into a lot of that on this, what do you call it, Hangout, podcast, video, whatever we're doing. So thanks for coming on, Beck. I really appreciate it. And let's see, if you don't mind, we can just dive right into it. I'd like a little bit of your story. You were a travel agent before, but that's not what you're doing now, correct?
Yeah, no, I was a travel agent in 2009 and 10, and back in New Zealand. And yeah, I was pretty good at that job. I had no prior experience whatsoever. But yeah, then I guess I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But then I moved into entrepreneurship. I started a company when I was 26. It went okay, but I had no idea what I was doing. I was like that gif of the dog floating around in a spacesuit in the space station. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I didn't have any idea. So it kind of was, it wasn't really like I sold all my stock, but I didn't really know how. And then I kind of just moved to Thailand and wanted to be a digital entrepreneur. It was a lot easier than selling what I used to sell in my first company, which was furniture. And I had to keep dragging it around the city and whatnot. So selling websites or working on digital marketing seemed like a way better thing to do. Yeah.
And so that business didn't have anything to do with travel specifically then?
Not at all, no. Although I did fly to China to figure out how to source a supplier and all that stuff. But yeah,
right.
That was just something totally different.
Okay, cool. So the travel was something you ended up circling back to later.
Yeah, definitely. When I figured out that most people didn't really know as much as I did about flights, because I'd spent wasn't even that long, but I'd put so much effort into learning about how to do it, and all these little tips and tricks. I figured that I probably should just share the knowledge.
Yeah, I think it was in your ebook. I forgot to mention that you get an ebook when you join too. And I think that's where I was reading about, even though you were new to the industry, you became known to be the person to go to figure out kind of a complicated, segments going through a bunch of different places. And the more complicated deals, the other travel agents would bring those to you to find a route. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It was a pretty cool situation. I happened to, when I got employed there, I was seated in front of the guy who held all the records of the company and stuff. And I was kind of a dick in the interview because I said, to get the job, you say whatever you got to say, right? Yeah. So I said, look, and I was a bit cocky, but I've always been pretty good at sales. So I said, look, I don't know if you guys got records or something here. And they were like, yeah, most sales and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, look, I'll beat it. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, no, I'll beat the record. And they're like, that's a big call. You don't even know what it is. I was like,
I was just going to say, you didn't even ask him what it was. Nice.
So I went in, and honestly, I don't think I would have been able to if I hadn't been seated in front of this guy, because he was the guy that had set all the records, which is probably why.
Okay.
So, and I just learned a lot from him. And yeah, really, there's only really two things that you have to do to be better than everyone else in the company, and that's sell to more people and make more money per deal than everyone else. And so how it worked is I would find way cheaper flights than everyone else, our competition included, and then sell to way more people. So I made more money than everyone else at the company, and I did end up beating the record in my first year.
Right. I used to be in sales too. I was in real estate. I would do my own deals, but I was also helping other people find houses and land and things like that. And I kind of put everything in terms of baseball or sports, football, whatever. And I used to think of it like, you know, most people that I was around, they were focused on increasing their batting average. Like, if you know anything about baseball, it's just how often you're successful, like when you're dealing with a client. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with increasing your batting average, but also the more times you go up and swing the bat, even if you have a low batting average, you're going to make things happen. And I saw people who were like both extremes. I saw people that were really good with their clients, and their clients were super loyal, and they would come back and they would send friends and everything. And then there were a couple other guys down the hall from me that were just on the phone. They'd put a sign up on their door. You know, we had glass doors, and the sign would say like prospecting, do not disturb. And you could hear them through the window just making call after call after call. And it was like, I would cringe when I listened to their delivery and their sales pitch. I'm like, oh God, does that ever work? You know, that's so bad. It's like, it sounded like straight off an infomercial, you know, and all these lines that came straight out of books and websites and stuff. But, you know, they might only get 1 in 100, but they'd made 50 calls a day. So in real estate, if you get a couple clients a week, you're doing really well. And that was their style. So yeah, they just increased the amount of people they got in front of. And I would think, you know, if you have a product like an insane deal on a flight that's going to kind of sell itself, then there you go. You get in front of more people. And
yeah, exactly. It's all a numbers game, isn't it? That's one of the things I really like. One of my favorite blogs is Tim Ferriss, because he deconstructs things right down to, you know, how to. It's kind of just like hack them, but just knowing the main things required. I just watched his special recently on poker, and he learns poker in like a week and then beats 3 of the top poker players.
Wow.
I love that kind of stuff, and that's, you know, that's kind of what we're talking about. If you could, it's what I did in my first year. Is lots of people spend ages learning all this different stuff. I was like, what's the main 3 things I need to learn? And the guy's like, this, and this. I was like, perfect.
Right. That's the 80-20, the Pareto's principle, right? Yeah.
I learned all the I learned all the airline routes, and that's kind of how it was really just learning all the airline routes.
Yeah.
A lot of weird stuff in here now.
Well, you told me, I mean, I've been probably already abusing my membership, sending you a bunch of messages in the Facebook group, but I mean, you've already told me about some hubs that I guess I sort of knew. I knew Boston was a pretty big city, but I didn't realize how big of a hub that was. And you told me about the flight to Oslo, and I think it was like, just recently it was $144 from Boston to Oslo. And I mean, that kind of blew my mind. I've never heard of anybody getting over the Atlantic for that cheap, you know? And then I wound up, my dad lives in Costa Rica. So, you know, after reading your book, I was searching Boston to everywhere else. And I saw some crazy deals from Boston down to Costa Rica too. So, I mean, it's super helpful.
And, there's plenty more to come as well.
Yeah. So, I guess, so fast forward, you know, you were in the travel business, you got into the digital nomad thing, as people call it. You said you've been around Chiang Mai, you're in Bangkok now. And so now you're going back to the travel. And so I guess, you know, I'm actually going to open up your ebook here too, to kind of have something to work from, kind of an outline. But let's jump into, first of all, I guess we should mention the tools that you use. I know one of them is Skyscanner and probably a couple other sites. Can you tell us about the best tools that you use to search?
Yeah, sure. There's going to be like a huge section with lots of different stuff because there's always these new apps coming out and stuff. I really just want to be a hub for all of that kind of stuff. But my 90% of the time I use Skyscanner to get my general ideas. So I always start with Skyscanner. Sometimes if I want to compare it with something else, just to be safe, or if I think, I don't know, there could be something better, because I'm pretty familiar with how much things should cost, I'll use Google Flights.
Okay.
There's a couple of apps that have just come out that I'm kind of looking into. There's Skip Lagged and a couple other ones. But, I mean, I've heard of people using Momondo. I'm just kind of getting started on that, but I really just prefer Skyscanner. It's so easy. The mobile version is just, you just find anything in 10 seconds.
So, I mean, I've used Skyscanner a lot too. After I moved here, a friend recommended it to me. I used to use Kayak and other stuff before that. But the interface is great. Then the search is very user-friendly. The fact that you can search from a given country or a given city to anywhere in the world is great if you have like an open, flexible schedule. So my question is, I know that the interfaces are pretty different, and the ways that you can search are different at a lot of these sites. But are they pulling the flight prices and data from the same magical database somewhere?
Yeah, they are. There's like a massive database. I think it's in Texas, and it's a huge crappy system, and it's so old, and no, it's billions of dollars, or I don't know, millions of dollars. It's very expensive and old, and they're not going to fix it unless it's broken, and it doesn't really break because people are sort of working on bits and pieces, but there's no overhaul happening. So travel agents, when you go to a travel agent, usually they work with some form of interface with that system. Might be Galileo. I used Sabre, but I think that's been retired now. And it's just like a blue screen with all this crap on it. And yeah, I think so. All of the like Skyscanner, I think pulls from, well, I guess Skyscanner pulls from airline websites and other aggregate websites. So it's kind of like, I guess it's probably level 3. Like 1 is the actual system, 2 is airline websites, and there's a bunch of intermediary ones which no one ever knows a name for, but they always come in between Skyscanner, and they're always named something random. I'm trying to think of a great example and I can't. But yeah, then there's Skyscanner. So that you get the random intermediary ones, they must take a tiny commission, but it's not really noticeable because Skyscanner has the cheapest flights that I've ever found. Sometimes you can go to like occasionally I'll go to, what's a good example? AirAsia. If I'm looking for an AirAsia flight and I'm looking for a flight and I see it on Skyscanner, it's an AirAsia flight. Usually, I don't know, 70% of the time you go to AirAsia and it's like $5 cheaper or something.
They're just taking the commission off? Is that kind of what's going on? Okay. So in other words, Skyscanner has a great interface, and if I was to search Skyscanner and Expedia and Travelocity and Kayak, they're all pulling from the same place in one way or another?
Yeah, they definitely are. Yeah, those kind of ones.
If we boil it down, so I'm not really missing out. It's just which interface I prefer, pretty much.
Generally, I find that because not all airlines are listed, or not all segments are listed equally on those things. Like, there's really just so many data points and so much information in that system that it would be impossible to pull all of it properly. So like Expedia, for example, I've been looking for flights that I found on Skyscanner and they just weren't on Expedia. Like, they didn't have that segment. So I'm like, all right, well, so after using all the tools that I've used, and including Momondo since I've started using it, Skyscanner is still the one that has the most segments. And as you know, I book using segments, not. But I mean, I'm gonna. One of the things that I want to talk about is, like in my book and in the group as well, is how search engines. I think I wrote this in the book. How search engines suck. Like, most of them just suck because they have A to B. And actually, Skyscanner is the same as this in some ways if you're using a multi-city search. So if you want to go, one I did the other day was, what was it? It was Seattle to Iceland to Barcelona. And it's like $300 or something. And
wow.
Yeah, it was epic. So if you want to do that and you want to go to Barcelona, you want to go Seattle to Barcelona, you're going to search Seattle to Barcelona. That's what the search engine is telling you to do. What do you want to leave from? Where do you want to get to? That doesn't take into consideration that there's like a bunch of different options in between. You could have some cool stopovers. One might cost be way cheaper, and you get to go to Iceland. Like, that's so one of the things that I would love to solve one day, if I can turn this Nomad Fly business into something a little bit more, is to build a search engine where it takes that kind of stuff into account.
That would be killer. I would instantly post that in the Chiang Mai Digital Nomads group and get you 10,000 people.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I don't really care about like money or anything. I don't care about that. Like, that is a thing that needs to exist in the world. You know, like if I could, I mean, I'm hoping to meet with Skyscanner one day and like talk to them about, guys, this is what you should make. I can spend hours coming out with all the different segments that are available. We can make an algorithm, you know. But it's like
the other thing you mentioned before, I think it was in the Facebook group, was that, like you said, you can search from, you know, Thailand to anywhere, which is a search I do a lot. But if I want, like at some point this summer, I want to end up in either Seattle or Vancouver, and it would be great if I could search from anywhere to Seattle, right? The other way, like the reverse of that. That would be because if I see a killer deal from, you know, Iceland or whatever, then cool, I can make my way over to Iceland and end up in Seattle and spend less. And I do want, like, Iceland is a real example of somewhere I want to check out. So yeah, I'm cheering for you.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So the what I just said about the that search engine, and then just the thing that you just said is the second part of how awesome that thing would be. I mean, those two facets would just like change the travel industry, I reckon.
You know, there's one more thing that I learned in literally the first 24 hours after I signed up for your group. And I guess maybe I'd heard this in the past, but I've never actually done it. So say I book Bangkok to Seattle, because that's a route I do a lot. And I think I've missed out on opportunities here, because I've flown from Seattle through Taipei to Bangkok. I've flown through Tokyo, Narita, Beijing.
Bangkok, Seattle to Bangkok.
What's that? Sorry?
That's because you were typing, you know,
yeah, right. But what I didn't realize, you said basically if you find your deal, you're going from Seattle to Bangkok and your stop is in Tokyo. But, you know, I only had like a 4-hour layover and then I was on my way. But you said, I think right before you actually book it, call up, you know, whichever Delta or whoever and say, hey, is it okay if I land in Tokyo and then fly out like 2 days later, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you go about that? You do it right before you book, or do you book through them?
So there's a couple of ways, and sometimes you can do it, you know, like you can book it as a multi-city if you want, because you can have 3 days in Tokyo. But I find that when you book a multi-city, it's often more expensive because they charge you for, like, there's some taxes that apply when you stop over, and sometimes, I don't know, like, it depends. For me, it's worth the call to call the, like, I don't know, travel agent or the airline, and ask that, because sometimes they don't charge you anything. It's like a date change, or like, you know how you call up and they're like, oh, it's $50 to change a date. Well, if you just booked it, or if you're about to book it and you're just asking them, it's worth the call. And every airline's different. Like, I find that Korean Air never charges me anything to change anything at any time. It's amazing. You just change any date, doesn't matter.
And to go back, just so I understand what you're talking about, you said you could book multi-city. Are you talking on Skyscanner?
Yeah. If you wanted the 3-day stopover in Tokyo, you could book it as a multi-city journey.
So when you say that, you're not talking about two different segments, right? Because I've never searched multi-city on Skyscanner.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's not that great. They just do the A to B thing, and you have to use an actual date, and it's not as good. But I'm
looking at. You got me curious. I'm looking at the homepage right now. I don't even see it, but
it's not on the mobile side. It's at the top, but you got a return and a one-way and a multi-city. It's on the right.
Oh, okay.
Or it's on the left, the right of the left.
All right. Anyway.
So I guess that's an important point, that because it can be confusing. Like what you said about the strategy is true. It's a really simple strategy, but if I don't explain it properly, it can be confusing. So it's quite new, so I'm still trying to work out the best way to get it across to people. But I think the best way to say it is that when you book a ticket, let's say you book a return ticket, and your ticket gets ticketed by the ticket office of the place that you booked it, and that means that they assign it a number. You've got a ticket number, and because you've booked your return ticket as in like one booking, you've only got one number, right? It's pretty straightforward. So even the times that you booked Bangkok, Tokyo, Seattle, Tokyo, Bangkok, that's all one ticket number, because it's the whole trip that you booked. You booked one trip. Yeah. But if for example, you booked, and I think you should try this, by the way, I've got a good route, Bangkok to Oslo, and then Oslo to Iceland, and then Iceland to Seattle, and vice versa, right? Okay. Give that one a try. You're going to love it.
I'm making a note.
Yeah. So if you did that, it's going to cost you less than $200 to go from Bangkok to Oslo. It's going to cost you less than $50 to go from Oslo to Iceland, and it's going to cost you, I don't know, maybe $250 or $300 to go from Iceland to Seattle.
Wow, I didn't know about that route. That's great.
Yeah.
I was looking at Oslo to Seattle, and it was not anything too special, if I remember right. But killer.
And also try booking the Oslo section, like Oslo, Iceland, Seattle, like with Icelandic Air directly, because sometimes Skyscanner doesn't. I don't know. I know that Iceland flies that route, but Skyscanner sometimes just is like, I don't know. Here's some that fly that route, and Iceland's not one of them for some reason. So that kind of stuff is, I'm kind of building an empire of really cheap routes, and I want to, definitely get those to the group as soon as possible. But I'm calling them like staple routes, like that Oslo Bangkok. That's freaking awesome. It's always going to be great. It's always cheap. So those kind of things, I call those staple routes. But to go back to the example, so if you booked that Bangkok to Oslo as one ticket, that would have its own ticket number because it's one booking that you did. And then maybe like the next day or 5 minutes later, you're like, I'm going to book this ticket from Oslo to Iceland, and that's its own ticket. So now you've got 2 ticket numbers for your journey. And that's basically, it's a big chunk of my strategy is just booking different tickets and little segments all over the world. There's a few pros and there's a few cons in the book. The cons are that, and this is really the main con, is that if you fly in somewhere and you've got like 4 hours, you've only given yourself 4 hours between stretches. You know, maybe you fly into Oslo and you've got 4 hours before you fly to Iceland. Well, if your flight to Oslo is delayed, you're pretty screwed.
Right. You
know, like if you're delayed and the airline doesn't care. If it was all on one ticket, like we said before, then the airlines, they're like, it's my bad, we're going to pay on the next flight. But
or they put you up in a hotel or something because it's their fault and they feel responsible. Yeah.
Yeah. And even if you did that with the same airline with 2 segments on 2 different ticket numbers, they probably wouldn't care because you did that. Sometimes that's cheaper and they don't want you doing that. They'd rather you just, and the other thing is you got to check your luggage out. You know, if you're on 2 different tickets and you've got luggage, you have to check it through to there, then you have to pick it up. And sometimes you have to, depending on the country, you got to go out and recheck in. That can be a pain in the ass. But if you don't, if you're a bit flexible, you want 3 days in Tokyo, maybe your flight's late, who cares? It's a couple hours late. And then that's kind of a fairly exhaustive list of what can go wrong with the strategy. So it's really
and to back up, I'm glad you talked about it that way too, because I was thinking about it as I was reading your book that, and I think you say it in the book too, this isn't the ideal type of strategy if you're somebody that gets 2 weeks off a year and you're trying to, just go relax and lay on a beach somewhere or whatever. This might not be the strategy, but if you're flexible or if you're spontaneous and you're somebody that likes to change your mind or change dates, or I thought I wanted to stay 3 days, but now I want to stay a week because I love it here. This is the kind of stuff, and this applies to a lot of our audience here, people that are a bit flexible, they work from their laptop. And I was thinking, if you are the type of person that has a job and you get your 1 week or your 2 week vacation, if nothing else, these routes, these hubs, like if you live in Seattle and you're a busy person, you get 1 week off, you can go to Iceland for super cheap. Like people pay more to go to like Mexico than you can pay to go to Iceland.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's true. And I guess that's a good time to bring up the around the world thing. I just made a note of it. Like a lot of people, I don't know if you've heard of, and I think I talk about this in the book too, like what are they called? Like Star Alliance fairs, or these round the world fairs where like you've got all the segments, you have to book them all. You're allowed like 16 flights, and you have to go around the world in one direction. And I don't know, there's like a bunch of rules. I used to book those for people. At the time, they cost about 5,000 New Zealand dollars to go around the world, 16 flights. You have a bunch of stuff, and you can change dates free as you're going around, but you can't change your locations. And I booked 2 of those, 2 or 3 of those, I think. And
so sorry to interrupt, but do you have to plan all your destinations before you leave, or do you plan it?
And you're allowed to use, the whole thing is that you're allowed to use like a certain alliance of, there's two or three different types of these, and you're allowed to use it like an alliance of certain airlines. So like, I don't know, I can't remember anything about them anymore because I don't care about that stuff. But
Yeah.
if you're allowed to use certain, like there's might be 10 different airlines or more, and then you're allowed to use different segments using any of those airlines, and they have like a partnership so that you can make this round the world flight. Yeah, I booked like three of those. What?
That's
So,
about $300 a segment, though, and we just talked about going from Seattle to Iceland for less than that, right? So, yeah,
exactly.
and sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I'll let you get back to it quickly, but the way I look at it too, that like once you get to a certain region, whether it's Europe or North America or whatever, I think Australia, I've never been there myself, but once you're in the general neighborhood, flights are dirt cheap. Like once you get to anywhere in Europe, whatever hub it is, like you said, going from Oslo to Iceland costs like nothing. Oslo to London to Barcelona to, I've done that. I couldn't believe, I was shocked how cheap the flights were. Because I was trying to book a train. When I figured it out, I was trying to book a train from Prague to Barcelona. I think that's what it was. And they were basically saying it was a big pain in the butt. There's no easy train route, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, you don't want to do that. You should book a flight. And I'm thinking, oh, come on, but a flight's going to be a lot of money. I'm in Europe. Everything's expensive here, And then I looked, and I think I flew, is it JetBlue over there or EasyJet? One of those. It was like $60 or something to go all the way across Europe. Anyway.
Yeah, it's amazing. And sometimes, sometimes the airport is in like a kind of a random place, and you have to pay a little to get out there to it. So you've got to be careful. There's a few things to look for when you're doing that kind of stuff. You end up paying a little more to get out to the airport sometimes for the cheap flight. But yeah, most of the time, Asia and Europe both have got like epic cheap flights to get around. And in the States, sometimes you can get super cheap flights within the States as well, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. And like Southwest aren't they an example of one that's not on Skyscanner?
Yeah, there's probably a few different ones.
And I was asking you the other day if that was also true in Australia, because you just said Asia's cheap. It's unbelievably cheap, especially, and the ones I usually see are AirAsia out of Kuala Lumpur, which for me, that's just a 2.5-hour flight from Chiang Mai direct. That flight is usually like $30 or $40. If you pick a couple weeks out, it can be like $25 or something.
Yeah.
I found Kuala Lumpur, which is kind of, I don't mind hanging out there for a couple days anyway, and I know a couple people there. Then I saw from Kuala Lumpur to Perth, which is Western Australia, it was like $40-something or $50-something, like 53, I think. And so that made me wonder if there are like the secret little low fare Australian airlines that aren't on Skyscanner. Like, can I get from Perth to Adelaide or Melbourne or Sydney super cheap, just like in Europe? But
yeah, there's not as much competition in Australia. So
yeah,
as far as I know, I mean, there's Tiger Air and a couple other small ones, but as far as I know, going from Perth to Sydney is it's a little bit expensive. But
it looked to me like Perth to Sydney was I could get a cheaper ticket from KL in Malaysia to Sydney, or about the same maybe.
That actually sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the Australian, once you're in Australia, you got Australian prices.
Yeah.
Right. To go back to what I was saying before about the round the world thing, I just wanted to point out that the strategy that I use, another benefit of it is that instead of paying up front, these guys are paying $5,000 up front per person to have their round the world ticket. That's a lot of money to fork out up front. If you do what I'm talking about, which when you're a digital nomad, you're somewhere for 3 months. I don't even think about the next flight.
Yeah.
I mean, occasionally usually I'll buy like one flight ahead if I know that where I'm going, I'm here for 3 months and then I'm doing another flight. When I originally wrote the book, we didn't have a service like flyonward.com where you can rent a ticket and it's $10 and you can show it as proof that you're going to leave the country. We didn't have a service like that. Now I just think that's the best thing. I wish I would have thought of it. It's such a good idea.
They're a sponsor of the Chiang Mai Digital Nomads group that I run on Facebook. And I think you're working something out with them too, right?
I am. Yeah. I've got a deal going with them, which is really great. I'm so excited that you introduced us because I just think it's the best thing. It works perfectly with my strategy. But the good thing about booking like just one ticket at a time is you only have to fork out like $200 at a time ever for flights.
Yeah.
Some people pay $3,000 for their blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, you don't even know what you're going to be doing. You might change your mind.
Yeah. Well, you know, tons of people, they start these long trips and then they fall in love with somewhere and get stuck. Like that happens in the islands all the time. People are like, "Oh yeah, I was going to go on this 6-month trip, you know, before school starts next semester or whatever." And so I went to Bangkok and then I went to Koh Phangan to the full moon party and I've been living here for 5 months.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
you know, they just forget about everything else they were going to do. So yeah, that is a lot of money to shell out up front.
Yeah, definitely.
I've never spent, I think the most money I've ever spent on a ticket was round trip about $800 and something, which I probably could have cut that in half if I would have talked to you. But that was Seattle to Bangkok.
Oh yeah, return, right?
What's that?
Is that a return flight?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, it's not like kind of an average deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just kayak.com's standard thing.
I always used to laugh when people would book they'd book all these flights and they'd book all these tours and they'd 3 o'clock on this day, we're going here. And I'm like, you're going to have diarrhea on that day, mate. Like, how do you know?
I know.
You're not going to have time for that tour. You're just going to be hungover. You've had this thing,
Right. You know, I agree with you. And this isn't about flights, but it's the same mindset, you know, the same way you approach flights. That's how it sounds like we travel the same way. Like I show up in a city and I read about a few things to do there, like some blog, like Travel Fish or something, you know, or I post in the Nomads group and be like, hey, what do you guys think is fun in KL or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll go to those caves and see the monkeys. Maybe I'll do this and that. But really what I do is my favorite way to go about it is I book a private room in a hostel. I used to stay in hostels in the dorm rooms and the bunk beds and stuff, but now I kind of, you know, it's nice to have your own room. But I like the hostel atmosphere because usually there's some like living room area where people are hanging out and watching a movie and talking. And you get like these people who have planned out the next day. They spend all this time planning this awesome day and they tell you about it. You're like, cool, can I come? You know, and like, I'll split the taxi with you. And you're like, oh yeah, you know, I find you just have all these awesome opportunities when you're chatting with other travelers. Yeah, I personally never plan stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. But, you know, each to their own. I think it probably works for some.
Yeah.
But we'll just do what we do.
Right. And, you know, the other thing is too, I think people like you and I are lucky because when I went to KL, it was my first time in KL, but I figured it's not going to be my last. So if I miss something, I'll just come back and check it out. You know, where if it's like your gap year and you don't know if you're ever going to come back, you kind of feel like you have to do everything cool in that one trip, right?
Yeah, that's true. I was reading about recently someone on, you know, that remote year where you do 12 countries in 12 months.
No.
It's it's a pretty cool thing. I'm involved with another company that is doing a similar thing.
Wait, so when you say remote year, what are you referring to? Is that like
remote year? It's a company that does.
Okay.
It's like a year-long trip. It's a kind of a nomad thing. You're working online, and they just organize. You kind of outsource the whole travel experience in your life to them. So they take care of the internet, the accommodation, the travel between wherever, and you just get to like work online and have heaps of fun. But,
and you're moving around with a group of people or no?
Yes, there's like 7. Well, in their group, I think there's about 60 people.
Oh, okay.
So it sounds pretty awesome. I'm working with a company that's going to be doing a similar thing called Super Nomad Friend Squad. SuperNomadFriendSquad.com. Check it out.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 12 countries in 12 months, and there's also, we're going to do one that's 4 countries in 3 months each, so it's still a year. Just gives you a bit of a longer time. But the point was one of the guys whose blogs I was reading that did remote year, he said the same thing. He said, look, I'm only here, I've got FOMO, only in, like Ljubljana or somewhere for 4 weeks, you know, so every weekend they were going somewhere else. There's so much cool stuff happening all the time and then move somewhere else. You know, if you haven't got much time, you kind of you've got to get everything done. Right.
You said FOMO, right? Like fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Using the jargon, sorry.
And this, if you're listening and you are somebody who, you know, you get a week every year where you can go somewhere or something, if you're jealous of hearing about these people that go for a year or 6 months or whatever, go back to my other episodes on OD on Life and you can figure out how these people go about doing this stuff. You know, a lot of people sell things, you know, e-commerce, they're selling physical products. Some people are travel bloggers and they're working out advertisement deals with hotels and travel companies and tour guides and whatever, but there's a million different ways to go about it. But You know, I've just been doing this like in location independent thing myself for about 2 years now. So I'm still excited. It still seems new to me, and there's all these places I haven't been. And I can totally identify with the people who, like I said, I used to be in a real estate building, and if I left for more than maybe a week or two, all my deals started falling apart, and clients were like sending me angry emails and stuff. So I slowly made that transition to free up my time, which is just like what you've done too. What you're doing, you can monitor your Facebook group and send people your ebook and do things like this interview from anywhere. So anyway, go to OD on Life, check out the past episodes, and hopefully you'll learn something.
Yeah, cool. And all the links and stuff that I'm talking about, you do show notes as well? I can.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, I can. Well, I'll send you through a list of all the stuff I've been talking about so that people know where to click.
Great. You know, so when you first started doing the location independent thing or the digital nomad thing, digital nomad, it's sort of overused because not everybody is really a nomad, but you know, a lot of people I know are location independent, but they're almost always here in Chiang Mai. But do you have any resources that really helped you get there? Like podcasts, blogs?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to everything I could find at the beginning. A lot of it was startup related. The first thing I ever read that kind of opened my eyes, obviously, was Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Work Week.
Yep.
Read that book, was like, oh my God. Started, you know, I set up a blog immediately, and I thought it was going to be this big, amazing thing. And I have no idea what I was doing. And so I think I must have kept on it for about 6 months to a year. And then I just didn't have I don't know, like I kind of had sold myself on it being really easy, you know, 4 hours and blah, blah,
right.
You know, writing all these posts and then doing all the promotion that comes along with it. I just didn't really catch on to that for a couple of years. I just I spent a lot of years just trial and error and learning, really.
Right.
I'm about 5 years in now. I've done I spent a long time doing freelance work for clients, just, you know, websites, a lot of copywriting. There's so many easy ways to break into it, really.
I agree. There's sites like Upwork. I mean, like some people are good at things like Photoshop, or if you're a Native American or not Native American like an Indian, but somebody with a North American accent. I mean, you can do voiceover stuff. You can proofread people's writing. There's so many jobs you can do. There's all these English tutoring services where you make, you know, $10 an hour, stuff like that. So like freelance or consulting type stuff is a great way to break in while you're trying to figure out, you know, what you want to do next, or if you're going to build a business. And, you know, you said you're about 5 years in. I think I started my first website longer ago than that, maybe like 8 years or something. But people, if it takes them we've talked about this in almost every episode, but in society as a whole, at least in America, if it takes you 5 years to go and get, say, a master's degree or a bachelor's degree in something, and then go get a job and start making money, I mean, they have a big celebration when you graduate. All you've done so far is spend money. Like, you've paid for classes and bought your books and all this stuff. You've just thrown tens of thousands of of dollars at this thing to get this piece of paper that says you're smart. And then you go get money. Everybody, they're high-fiving you. Yeah, you finally have a job, blah, blah, blah. That's considered great. But if you go and stumble around in the dark and like try businesses and fail, or find out you don't like them or whatever, even if you only do that for 2 years, like your whole family and your friends think you're crazy. And what are you doing? You spent $5,000 trying to build a business. Are you crazy? That's like 1 quarter at a university, right? It's this paradigm shift. Like, you're investing in yourself. It might take you, I mean, some people are successful. I've seen people become successful in like 2 months. Using like a method, and they have a mentor, and, you know, they start making a full-time income in 2 months. I've seen it happen. But on the other hand, if it takes you 3 or 4 years, in my mind, that's not failure at all. People go get a degree in 4 years, and then they go and get a job, you know, that they may or may not even like. So I think people need to shift that.
I agree with you. Yeah, I have this conversation regularly with digital nomads, digital entrepreneurs, and it's been a long time of, you're right, like kind of shuffling around in the dark trying to work out what's happening, and it's such a good education, isn't it? I mean, I went to university, you know, I got a degree, and no one cares. Like, that has given me, you know, I mean, maybe some life experience. I was lucky enough to do a couple of years in the States and a couple of years in Japan for my degree, but like, yeah, in terms of education and money spent, I'm like, what was the point of that? No one's ever asked to look at it. Sometimes there's jobs that say, you need a degree. I'm like, great, I've got one. No one cares to look at it or anything.
Right. Yeah, they almost just trust you. Like how you do, they don't get your transcript from your college. Maybe some places do.
Yeah.
But and you know, there are certain. I don't want to come across like I'm bashing all education. Like I love education, but going to university isn't the only way to get educated. And there are certain things like I know a kid that, well, several people I know that did not well in school. They were rowdy and couldn't sit still, couldn't read a book for more than 2 minutes without, you know, getting up and walking around. But now these guys, they go off to the tech school and they get a degree in welding and they're making $100,000 a year. And they have a nicer house than their teachers that told them they'd never succeed at anything, you know? And so there's, you know, there's a lot of ways to do life, but
yeah, definitely this is the way that I want to do it. I was saying to someone the other day, you know, I'm kind of bootstrapping things down here in Bangkok. I'm living for about $1,000 a month right now. And, you know, she's like, well, because we wanted to go somewhere and like on a holiday. And right now I'm bootstrapping, you know. I'm like, no, I haven't got the money for it. She's like, why don't you just get a job for a while? I'm like, oh my God. Like, yes, of course. That's a legitimate idea. I think that now I'm unemployable. You know, I just can't, and it's maybe it's a dick thing to say, I don't know, but I can't do that. I'd rather just like bootstrap and sit in my room and you know, do my flight routes and work out what I'm doing to grow my business than get a job and spend my time doing that.
And I think, I mean, I can just tell, like, you're excited about what you're doing, you know, and I mean, you're really helping people out. You helped me out already. And that's just got kind of a different feel to it, you know? Some people from the outside might look at it like, oh, poor you, you're grinding away, you know, spending $1,000 a month in Bangkok or whatever, but you're like having the time of your life, you know, and you're looking forward, you have a vision for what you're doing. So
yeah, it's all about the vision, isn't it? You know, I think I'm one of those people who lives into the future of like, this is all going to work out and I'm going to make it work out. And, you know, I've got probably 5 side projects as well that I'm working on concurrently. And yeah, it's just the vision that you have for your life. And I've got a really great one, so I'm really happy. You know, and lots of people make $200,000 a year and they don't have a great vision for their life. They're just kind of like, nah. So yeah, I know the same.
You know, okay, back to the ticket thing. One little interesting thing that I learned this in Europe trying to skip a leg of my trip. I wanted to get on this. Okay, I think I had like a 2-leg trip back home. I had flown in to Berlin, but I flew in through Amsterdam. And I had like an 8-hour stop in Amsterdam, which gave me time to go hang out in a park and read a book for a while, go back to the airport. Anyway, so I went to Berlin and then I kind of circled around Europe a little bit. And what I wanted to do was skip my first leg that was leaving out of Berlin. I wanted to leave out of Amsterdam because it was going Berlin, Amsterdam, Seattle. But the airline told me that, yeah, I hear you. Can you hear me? Hello?
Hey.
Hey.
I think we might be back. Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I could hear you the whole time.
Okay.
Sorry about that. But in other words, I wanted to skip the first leg of my trip because I had already been to Berlin and I wanted to hang out in Amsterdam a little bit. And they said, no way. If you miss the first leg, your second leg's canceled. Yes. Can you talk about that a little bit? Which legs you can skip, what you can't do?
Sure. That's a great point. I don't even know if I mentioned that in the book. But so if you book a ticket, let's say any ticket that's got more than one segment in it and it's on one ticket number, there's no way for you to like skip one and catch up with it later. You know, like it was the same in with that ticket I told you, it was $5,000 and 16 different segments in it. And if you miss the first one, that's it.
No. Mm-hmm. That's horrible.
You miss one, they're automatic. All the rest of them are automatically canceled. And it's the same with every ticket. You can't miss any of the segments because they're like, well, how are they going to catch up now? Delete, 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 delete. And I guess they don't want there to be like if you were to miss the next one and they like had held it for you, then that's like a seat that they could potentially have sold on the flight.
You know, it's funny because that's totally logical. But when I was trying to skip this Berlin to Amsterdam segment, I was even telling them like, go ahead and sell it. Like sell that seat to somebody else, you know, make $50 or whatever. And they're like, no, just absolutely not. They would not do it. But so you can skip your last segment. Have you ever done that though?
Yeah.
Yourself?
Yeah.
I never have.
It doesn't work if you've got luggage that's checked through the final destination. It's important.
Right. Well, unless you are going to like take a train there later and go to the airport and find your luggage, right? You could do that.
Theoretically, you could do that. Yeah.
Right. Probably not the greatest idea, but.
Yeah. If you, I have done that. When did I do it? I don't remember, but I did do it. And you just jump off the, you get off the plane and everyone else goes through to the, you have to wait for a while and then you get back on the plane or whatever. I think I did in Australia. And yeah, you just walk out, go to transit, get off.
Yep. And somebody's like calling your name over the microphone, wondering where you are, right?
No, they don't notice.
Oh, really? Okay. And so is there any consequence to that? Like if you try to fly on the same airline 2 weeks later or something, are they like, we don't like you anymore? Or?
No.
Okay.
No one even knows. And
cool.
one thing to do it's kind of a tip that's coming up later in the course is that you can do that to get cheaper flights. Like if you went to, okay, here's an example. If you went from let's use Bangkok to Oslo again. But let's say Bangkok to Oslo is $250, but Bangkok to Copenhagen is like $200. Well, just get off the plane at Oslo.
Right.
You've got, you can do that. You can get off the plane at Oslo. And then you ended up paying less.
Right.
It doesn't really do to tell people, like they don't like it when you do that because obviously you're doing the same thing. You're like using up the segment from Oslo to Copenhagen.
But I mean, yeah, they created that situation by having crazy pricing. That doesn't make sense, right? I mean,
it never makes sense, to be honest. There's so many rules and so like it totally is logical for us to say, hey, why don't you sell that segment between there and there? But that's not how flights, that's not how they operate. It's like,
that's like you walk into McDonald's and say, I want a Big Mac. And they're like, oh, that's $20. Like, what? $20 for a Big Mac? Yeah, but if you buy two, it's $5. Okay, well, I only want one. I'll just buy two and throw one on the ground.
Right. It's exactly.
Yeah, it's bizarre pricing.
Yeah, and
there must be some reason. I don't know. Like, more people want that route and they're willing to pay more. Or who knows? I don't know.
Something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Or it could just be a weird inefficiency, and who knows?
Yeah, I don't know who, if there's anyone that monitors that stuff, but like, it's pretty hilarious the stuff that you can find sometimes. It's just, what? Like you can go, it might cost you less to go from Bangkok to Oslo than to go from Bangkok to Tokyo.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to highlight two things here on my little notes because I've got one that helped me out. Another thing that helped me out within 24 hours of checking out your book and your group. And you did talk about skipping a segment in your book, I'm pretty sure too. I think that's where I was reading about it. So one that was huge for me, and I can't believe I wasn't doing this before, but when I was searching, say, to go to Seattle, for some reason, I would go Bangkok to Seattle, and then I would do Chiang Mai to Seattle, see which one was cheaper because it's easier for me if I can go from Chiang Mai. And then I would do the same thing to Vancouver because my city's in between Seattle and Vancouver, so it makes no difference to me. But what I wasn't doing is just going like Thailand to Seattle. And so I searched, after I was reading your stuff, I searched Thailand to everywhere just to see what was a good deal. And I was shocked when I saw Cologne, Germany for, what was it, $153 one way or something? Like, I mean, it was, what's that?
Phuket, right?
Yeah, Phuket, right. And I never would have searched from Phuket. I would have always searched, I might have searched from KL in Malaysia and Bangkok and Chiang Mai, but it never occurred to me that Phuket would have a deal like that. And I can fly pretty cheap from Chiang Mai to Phuket and hang out on the beach for a couple of days and then go to Germany. I mean, that was an eye-opener for me. So I've been doing that ever since. I found from Malaysia to anywhere. I found like Sapporo, Japan for $101 each way. Osaka, Japan for $79 each way. So thank you. That was like a really simple tip that I looking back, I'm like, why haven't I been doing this for the last however many years? No,
I love it. I'm glad you got so much out of it just in the first little while. There's plenty more stuff like that to come for sure.
Yeah. Oh shoot, what was the other thing I wanted? Oh yeah, timing. You read in your book, you said something about the fallacy of like the cheapest day of the week. But this may be different with different airlines or routes, I don't know. But do you find that you tend to get better deals like last minute or way in advance, or is there like a couple different sweet spots, or is it all about the ticket class, which you wrote about in your book?
Yeah, in my experience, it's all about the ticket class, and that's kind of like point A. And point B is airlines generally release most of their good tickets, like their good airline classes or fares around 4 months, between 3 and 4 months ahead. So that's kind of when I like to book. And
Okay.
that doesn't mean anything, because that's sort of a general rule of thumb. But I mean, I was looking for my best friend's coming out here from Italy, like next week, and I found like an epic ticket. It was from Cologne, actually. I was like, just fly to Cologne and then get a whatever to wherever, and like I can't remember, is it Condor or something that flies there? And it was Cologne to Bangkok, and it was going to cost $209, and that's for next week. And
that's one way, right?
Yeah, it's one way.
Yeah.
So that was pretty sweet, you know. Like usually you look last minute and you're like, or airlines never release anything last minute. They're never like, oh, this is an amazing thing that we're just doing now. Like there might be some. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, do they ever get in the position where like maybe this ticket to Cologne that I was looking at from Phuket was for next week or something? Because I'm much more of a last minute guy. I don't really plan a few months ahead. So is it like it didn't sell as well as they thought it would, and so now they're like still the cheap class of tickets, or what do you think's going on there?
You know, it's not a very well-known route, you know. I think that a lot of times the stuff that I call my staple routes are just really unknown. So they have to put the prices down because people are like, what? Oh, didn't know that existed. But I don't know, I guess like at the last minute, it does make total sense for us, logically, for them to be like, all right, well, the flight's in 2 days and we've still got 50 seats, so we should just release those for like $20 each. But, you know, in order for them to make some money or whatever, maybe $20 is an exaggeration. But they don't do that because they know that if they did that, no one would ever book anything 4 months ahead.
Right.
Until the last minute. And then it would just be like a bloodbath.
Yep.
So that's kind of why they don't do that. But they occasionally, like, you'll see them, like I think I said, depending on the airline, the lower class of fare like might be $200, and then they've got a whole bunch that they're just not selling at $700. So they'll just put a few down in the $200 range and just kind of have a few at a time.
And I just realized before I read your book, I didn't know what these classes were about. So we're not talking business class, first class, coach. We're talking something that they use in their system, right? So they have letters or something.
Yeah, I wish that I would have thought of something better to call them than classes. That's what they are. It's a little bit better explained in the book than I'm going to do right now. But airlines have got it's kind of like a ladder, and all their tickets, first class and business class and blah blah blah, is irrelevant at this point, right? So they've got and they're all some letter of the alphabet, and it depends on different airlines what they are, and every ticket has got a rule. You can only use J class for this ticket, and it's only valid for 3 months, and blah, 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 blah. And if there's no J class when you're looking to change your date to the 13th of September and there's no J's on that day, you're going to have to like go up to a different class of ticket, and then you have to pay like the difference in price. So if you've got like first class will be, H class or something, you know, first class might be Y class, or business class might be something else. So it's called something else in the system. And so that's kind of irrelevant for everyone to know. But like, if you do want to change your date and they can't find that ticket, or it's like really expensive, it's because you bought something on a really low class of fare and then it's sold out. Usually they do have access to like add more tickets and like add more seats into that class of fare, but they just don't usually do it because they can be dicks if they want. So they might make you pay for like 1 or 2 classes up, depending on how many tickets are still available in that class.
Right.
Sounds like
sorry, I'm kind of random topic changer here, but something that I like, okay, I like to keep things simple whenever possible. Like a good example of that is I still don't have a bank account in Thailand. And well, I'm not a resident here, but I've been mostly here for 2.5 years.
Mhm.
And some people look at me like, what's wrong with you? You know, and say, I just hear all these stories about all the hassles and opening an account and blah, blah, blah. And I just really like, my time is important to me. I don't want to spend a day begging some bank manager, doing copies of something down at my consulate. Anyway, I just go to the ATM and I put my card in and I pay the 200 baht fee, which is like less than $6, I think. And I get as much as I can each time I get cash, just so it's, you know, percentage wise, it's a very small amount for me to pay. And it saves me the hassle of screwing around with like wire transfers. And I mean, honestly too, like we just had a coup since I moved here. So, you know, do I want to put all my assets in a bank in this country? I don't personally.
Yeah.
Call me crazy. It's cool if you have some of your assets here. Anyway, my dad lives in Costa Rica too, and he says it takes him like sometimes 2 hours to make a deposit at the bank. Like, will you please take my money? Oh yeah, but that's going to take a couple hours. You know, like I don't have time for that, right? I'll just go to the ATM. And my dad did that because he was building a house, and so he needed to like pay significant amounts for materials and contractors. And anyway, it just sounds like such a pain in the neck. What I'm getting at very slowly here is I like your technique compared to all these guys who have like 25 different credit cards and they're like trying to figure out what their points are good for and what days they can travel. And like, oh my God, to me, that sounds like a part-time job. And I know there are people who love it, and that's cool. Like, more power to them.
And they have champagne and whatever. They, you know, that's good for them. But they do so. They spend so much time on that. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I had a neighbor, and he's really good at it, and he has been to some really cool places. But he used to sit down there, and he was excited. It was fun for him, so that's cool. For me, it's not fun. But he'd be like showing me all these deals he was getting at the coffee shop right in front of my building here. And then he had a travel blog, and he did go to some really cool places, and it was like free. I think a lot of times he just had to pay the taxes, the airport taxes or whatever. I mean, he had like the trip of a lifetime. He did that for about a year, and it was all credit card points. But it just doesn't seem fun to me. So I like your way. Like, I'm willing to pay I like to get a deal, but I'll pay a little bit to get my life back, right? To have not spend all day in a coffee shop looking at fights.
Yeah, well, there's two reasons why I don't like that strategy. The first one is, obviously, I'm not an American. So, right. I mean, I tried to get into it. You know, I joined Chris Guillebeau's travel cartel, and I tried to like look at all the deals that came out with points, and I was like, oh, that one's not eligible for non-US, and that one's not eligible. I tried to join my credit card thing in New Zealand, which was, you know, you spend like $20 and you like get 1 mile or something. It was just, you know, I made like 7 miles, and it was crap. So, obviously that didn't really work for me. And I wanted to create something that, you know, with Nomad Fly is, you know, nomads are everyone. We're everywhere, from everywhere. And not everyone's eligible for that kind of credit card stuff, but it's deserved to have some good deals. So if I can help share those around, that's kind of what I wanted to do.
Right. And, you know, just to be fair to those guys, I do know some people who do well with that technique, but part of the reason, or like most of the reason it works really well for them, is because they're doing these e-commerce businesses where they get money from their customers and then they use their credit card to pay the suppliers for their products. So they might be doing like tens of thousands of dollars in purchases on their card every month. So that adds up. But for me, it was I am American, but, you know, I don't use my credit card for everything, especially when I'm living in Thailand. I use it for nothing. Like, I can't remember the last time I used it unless I'm buying something online. So for me, the miles just never really added up. But yeah, if you're like a drop shipper or somebody that's buying tens of thousands of dollars in stuff every month on your card, you can get free trips all over the place if you're American. But
yeah, well, I don't want to do it either. I mean, if you can do it, heck, like I would do it if I could. You know, if I was like putting thousands of dollars on my credit card every month, sort that out. But yeah, I'm not. So this works for me.
Yep. Man, I get all, okay. Yes. The other thing I wanted to mention, I think you're like me in this way. So you've got one of my favorite quotes about money. I don't know who said it or if it's just some saying. Anyway, it's, you don't get rich by wasting money. And you've got I see like two different types of people in general. You've got the type of people who will brag to you about their sunglasses cost $400 or their handbag cost $1,500, and they'll like put a picture of it on Facebook with, they keep the tag on it. You know, it's like those music videos where the rappers, like I think it was the Hot Boys, like they got the tag on the Bentley to show the price was like some actual lyrics. So like you're bragging about how much money you spent in a way like, look how much money I blew, which of course implies I have a lot more, right? But the truth is a lot of those people that spend $400 on sunglasses, they don't have a lot more money. That was like most of their money. So I'm the type of person that I will brag when I get something cheap. I actually, like, I'm not into brand names. It's just not my thing, but I have a Gucci wallet. And before that, I had a Coach wallet. And the reason is I used to run a flea market, and we had an auction every Saturday, and I was always buying stuff at garage sales, and people would come in and sell me things at the counter. So I always had tons of 1s and 5s and 10s and 20. Like I had to have a lot of cash with like small denominations. So if my wallet was cheap and I folded it, it would like break and rip, and like the stitches would come out. And because I just had like I don't know if you ever watched Seinfeld, but George's wallet where he's like sitting crooked and it hurt his back. That was me. So I had to have like a good quality leather wallet, but I got my Coach wallet for like $3 from somebody that came in and sold it to me. And it's like, cool, this is a good quality wallet. It's real leather. It's tough. And it was $3. And then the Gucci wallet was like ridiculously big and it fit more ones in it. So I upgraded and I got that one for $5, and that'll probably last me half my life because it is good quality, but it has this big like shiny G on it, that Gucci G. Yeah. And when I remember that it's there and people see it, I'm kind of embarrassed by it because I don't know how much a Gucci wallet is supposed to cost, but I'm like, no, I didn't really pay however much a Gucci wallet costs. Like, so I brag about the Gucci wallet I got for $5. That's, you know, like if I find that route from Phuket to Cologne, I'm bragging about it because, you know, even if you have money, like a lot of people that have a lot of money, they're still frugal. Like they don't waste it. They didn't get to that point by blowing all their money and having nothing left at the end of the month. So I don't know. What do you think about my rant?
No, I totally agree with you. You know, I'd say I'm not a bragger about getting, I like to buy some nice stuff. I'm not really a brand name person either, but I like to buy it. I don't really tell people about it when I buy it. And I usually try to, yeah, if I buy something and I get it for a really good price, I might say something about it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle towards the cheaper side.
Right. Well, and you know, there's something to be said for buying quality stuff, right? Like if you buy crappy wallets, you're going to buy a wallet every year because they fall apart. Yeah. And that's true. Like I've been there, done that. And I was kind of surprised actually once I got these are very nice wallets. I don't know, I'll never have to buy another wallet maybe. But the idea that price and quality are always like in a direct relationship is just totally not true. You know, like a Lexus, I don't know the exact numbers, but a Lexus might cost twice as much as the Toyota, but it's made at the same factory and it just has some different options and stuff and a little more prestige, and they spend more on marketing for the Lexus. But just because you paid less for something doesn't mean it's lower quality.
No, that is definitely true.
What other things, do you have any other hack type things to talk about that I haven't been bringing up?
Let me see here.
I'll bring up your ebook too, because I'm sure there's something that I'm forgetting. Or do you want to brag about like any of the best deals you've found? You just told us about your friend's deal.
Well, I mean, I try to post a deal in the Facebook group like most days. It takes me a little while. It doesn't take me long to find it, but I have to like put it in Canva and like make it all.
Oh yeah. I saw your post today. Actually, it was Lisbon to somewhere, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. Lisbon to Brazil, São Paulo, Brazil, for $129.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, it was really cool. I like to find, because you know the whole digital nomad thing. I really like. I haven't been to all the places, but the nomad kind of hubs that I have been, I really liked them, and I think they're hubs for a reason. And the reason I wanted to start Nomad Fly was because actually I read about, well, this was after I had the idea, but I read about a guy who does in the States a similar thing where he just sends out like really good deals from the States, like holiday deals, mistake fairs and like these kind of things. And a lot of people in the Reddit group that I was reading were like, oh, do you have this for like people who don't live in the States, like other stuff? I was like, Well, I have all this knowledge, and I already had written the book. And so I thought, well, look, I'll just I'll do a site, and I'll try and teach people about it. Actually, my goal at the beginning was it's sort of developed. It's only been launched for a little over a week, but and it's been doing really great. You know, it's probably one of my most successful projects, which is really cool. But I just wanted to, like, initially I wanted to send out deals, like the ones that I post in the Facebook group. But that's, you know, what are the chances of someone needing a flight from there to there at that time? Like, they would just look that up themselves if they, you know, those particular segments.
Right.
So I'm like, well, it's not very valuable. I always want to provide more value to everyone, you know, obviously. And so I decided that, actually just the other day, I thought, well, it's way better if I do, you know, teach people. And I talked to someone when I was getting some feedback about the idea. He said there's lots of places that give deals to people. You know, here's a deal, here's a deal, here's a deal. I get friggin' emails every day about, here, buy this flight. It's like, I don't enjoy that. I don't really care about it. What can I do to give people more value? And, you know, I'm going to give my knowledge away of how to do it yourself, so that when you do need to fly somewhere, you don't have to call me and find out, or wait till I send you a deal. You can freaking look it up, and you can have fun doing it and get yourself a really awesome deal. And how great do you feel after you find a deal like that?
Yep. And, you know, even the examples that you post, I'm scrolling through right now, LA to Oslo, then Oslo to Bangkok for $325. Like, that's crazy. That's from the West Coast of the United States to the northern part of Europe, and then all the way down to Southeast Asia for $325. And so, like you said, I don't need to go from those places, you know, LA to Oslo to Bangkok right now, but I'm going to see these patterns of these hubs. Like, I keep seeing Oslo pop up. And, you know, so I don't know. It's good. It's repetition, right? It's like, oh yeah, Oslo and Boston. And, you know, I see these same hubs popping up over and over. Chiang Mai, you posted Chiang Mai to Hong Kong to Tokyo to London for $411. So, you know, that my mind is going, oh, Hong Kong to Tokyo. Ooh, yeah, I bet that's a good route. You know, I already knew Chiang Mai to Hong Kong was a good, quick, cheap route. Tokyo to London, that makes sense. Those are both big business centers. Like, my mind's kind of just being a sponge right now.
Yeah, it's really awesome, you know, and I'm really excited to give all that knowledge away, because, you know, it makes the world a better place. You know, if I could get Skyscanner to fix a couple of things about their search algorithms, you know, that could change travel for a lot of people.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's just a little, those kind of flights that I put in there, I do them for fun, and I do them, there's a little bit of travel porn in there for everyone to get excited about every day. And just think about what they're going to book next.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's inspiring. I mean, I couldn't believe, like, the Oslo one's been huge for me in particular, and Boston. You've got my gears churning. I'm scanning here, shop around, be flexible with dates, try going a different way. I'm, like, looking at your kind of bullet points here.
Yeah. No, there's so many bits and pieces. There's small tips, you know, that are just like, there's a good one about if you're flying from, like, return from Europe to Asia, it's good to not return back to the same base. Like, if you book from Milan to Bangkok and then you don't go back to Milan, sometimes it's cheaper to go to another city. Mm-hmm. Like, or especially if that's somewhere like London that's got, like, lots of taxes, and then you just fly, like, maybe you fly London to Bangkok back to Milan, and then you have to still get from there to there, but you might save 100 or 200 pounds in the process. So
are the taxes, is that both ways, or is it just when you arrive somewhere, or how does that work?
There's departure taxes, and there's like landing taxes, which are they're not always calculated into the taxes. Sometimes they're calculated into the fare, but it depends on usually the bigger the city, the more the taxes are. So it might be cheaper to land in, like, Boston than New York, or I guess Newark sometimes instead of another New York airport. I don't know. There's, like, lots of different.
It reminds me of, have you heard of Allegiant Airlines? It's an American one based in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. They fly in my hometown of Bellingham, which they call, like, Vancouver South. And Bellingham's a very small town, but it's like a 45-minute drive from Vancouver. So they've got, like, 90% Canadians flying out of my hometown in the US. And then they go to Oakland instead of San Francisco. And they don't go to Phoenix. They go to someplace like 10 miles from Phoenix. Yeah, just like you're saying, they're getting better deals.
Yeah, they don't have to pay quite so much to land, or there's way less to deal with for them. That's why they do that, and that's why places like Ryanair can be so cheap, or companies like whatever those ones in Europe are, because they land at these airports that might be 10 or 20 miles out.
Yeah. And if people listening haven't heard of Ryanair, I mean, we're talking like you can get a trip for what, 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks, like to all kinds of destinations.
I mean, my friend in Norway, she texted me the other day. She found a flight from where was it to? It was like to, I don't know, somewhere else in Europe, like Poland or Germany or something. It wasn't that far, but it was $0, and she just paid. It was like $10 tax.
Whoa.
And the flight. That's so common. Like,
I mean, that's cheaper than the bus, cheaper than the train. Like,
yeah, it's cheaper than the taxi ride to get to the airport.
Yeah.
Crazy. There's so many of those. Once you're in Europe, like you said, you're right. There's tons of different airlines. There's so much competition. And obviously competition gives you good deals.
that really surprised me in particular in Europe. I just, before I had gone there, I just thought everything's expensive in Europe, I mean, like food is expensive. A lot of things are expensive, hotels, but not flights. I love it.
Yeah, it's true. Flights are like way cheap, and it's almost worth booking like a long haul flight so you can just sleep.
Yep.
And get up somewhere else in a new city. I did that with trains quite a lot there as well.
Right. I forgot. I usually do a shameless self-promotion for my board game. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's called Better Me. And it's a personal development board game. And one of the cards in the game asks people to share one of their favorite travel experiences, because I think travel is super enriching, and a lot of times it helps people just understand more about the world and people from other parts of the world. So I was wondering, Beck, I shouldn't have just put you on the spot. I should have let you prepare. But do you have any personal favorite travel experiences you'd like to share?
Oh man, you really are put me on the spot here.
Yeah, I'm sure maybe just the first one to come to mind. You probably have a lot of them.
Yeah, I do have a lot. Most of the time when I think about travel experiences, I think about the the horrifying ones, like when you get diarrhea like on a mountain or something. I was hiking the Lares Trek in Peru and did that. But anyway, we won't go into that kind of thing. But I'll tell you my favorite destination.
Okay.
And that's Japan. My favorite country is Japan. I lived there for a year. And it wasn't like one of those ones where, I've always wanted to go to Japan because I love anime and I love cute cartoons or whatever. Like, no, I don't really care about that stuff. The people of Japan were like the best, like the nicest people. I mean, I guess all my favorite stuff is, it doesn't seem like it would be favorite stuff. I think it's really good in retrospect. When I first got to Japan, I took this suitcase with me, and it was the biggest thing that I couldn't carry. I couldn't even lift it myself. Like it was a nightmare. But I was quite new to traveling still, and so I carried this thing around. It was too big to fit up the Japanese escalators.
Oh wow!
And so I was dragging it around, and a lot of times people, it's even worse than in Thailand. In Thailand, you do something, people stare at you. Sometimes they have a laugh, and they might help you up or whatever. Something happens, but I was trying to drag the suitcase up like the metro stairs, which are really tall, like these massive stairs. I was dragging this thing up. I was sweating. I've been going for a couple of hours. I kept getting lost because of all the signs were in Japanese and stuff. I didn't speak any Japanese. I just arrived there to learn, but I hadn't really started. And so I was dragging this thing up, and I got to like the very top of the stairs, and my sweaty fingers slip, and the suitcase just goes like flying down the stairs. And it's friggin' enormous and heavy, and honestly, these Japanese people were screaming and flying out of the way, and I was like, I was like chasing it, and it slid like down the bottom of the stairs and across the floor of the metro. And then in the end, like I had two Japanese guys carry it with me back up the stairs, and they were just like everyone was just like, ah. It honestly could have killed someone. It was that horrendous, but it didn't kill anyone, and I now speak Japanese, and I'm here to tell the story. So yeah, those are the kind of things you would never think of something like that ahead of time when you're picturing your trip, right? Yeah, I know. That's one of the things I love about travel. It's the best way to to learn. It's the best kind of life experience. It can be scary and daunting, you know, but like, what are you going to do? I've had a million crazy, weird experiences, and I wouldn't take any of them back. You know, they're all part of who I am now, which is really great.
There's a story that comes to mind when I think about this card in the game. For whatever reason, the first few times I traveled outside the US, it was always to somewhere where people could tell just from looking at me that I wasn't from there, right? Just like you were saying, you get stared at and you're obviously a foreigner. And that was like Costa Rica and Thailand and places like that. So when I went to Sweden for the first time, I didn't think about it at all when I went there, but it was the first place I went where I kind of blend in. So I remember it was my first day. I was really tired. The hostel didn't let me check in until like 2 p.m., but I got there at 9 a.m. and they wouldn't even let me leave my backpack there, which seemed weird to me. So I'm walking around with this heavy backpack in my flip-flops all over the old town and all over Sweden. And I was just super tired. All I wanted to do was sleep. But I went into McDonald's to basically like take a shower in the sink. And I was in there for a few minutes, like washing off. And I came out still kind of dazed and tired. And this little kid runs up to me, a little boy, like probably 4 or 5 years old. And he says something to me. He's excited. And like, I think it was a question, but he said it in Swedish, which caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that. And his mom was standing right there too. And whatever he said, I just responded, yeah. And I don't know if it was a question or what, but like his mom kind of looked at me with a funny look. Like it obviously my response didn't make sense. And I just felt really uncomfortable. It was just a tiny little moment, but those are the kind of things you don't think about. You can't anticipate these weird little travel moments that end up sticking with you. Travel's awesome. It's super enriching. So that's why I wanted to talk to you today, was to get the audience, to give them a better chance of getting out there in the world and having these weird experiences, and checking things off their bucket list or whatever it is for them. So,
yeah, definitely. I agree. It's definitely the best way to get knowledge. There's nothing that can really compare,
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other way except for getting out there and getting with the random boy in the McDonald's, or like the guys who helped me carry the thing, or you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I love about it for sure.
And since I'm shamelessly self-promoting my Better Me game, which is bettermegame.com, people can download, they can print it and play it for free if they want. Now let's promote you. It's nomadfly.me. That's where people sign up, right? I think they can sign up for the free newsletter, or they can become a member. Do you want to tell people what they get if they decide to sign up?
Sure. I've actually, I've changed it a little bit just in the last week, just pivoted a little bit because it makes it, I think, a little bit easier for everyone. The membership the membership includes the ebook, like you said, my ebook. I also have a PDF with a bunch of different segments to start everyone off. They're like staple segments. I think it's more than 250 of those. And I'm going to do an email a week for 12 weeks. So it's kind of like a 12-week course. I just wanted to compartmentalize everything into different sections. Because I think that will make it a little bit easier than just random tips every week forever. Also, I'm going to do a lot of video as well, and I'm going to keep that in like an online course format, and also have, so there'll be a video for every email, if that makes sense, and all that stuff will be always accessible in the online course. And the other cool thing that you get with membership is deals. I've made some really cool deals with a lot of companies already. I try to do one a day, actually. I'm just trying to get as many people on board as I can. I want Nomad Fly to just be a hub for all things nomad travel related. So we get like 100 euros off of Coboat. I don't know if you know what.
Oh yeah, cool. I've met with the guy who put that. Or actually, no, I'm confusing people, but I've talked to that guy, and that's the coolest idea. He's got the big catamaran, and it's like a co-working catamaran.
Yeah, so you can, and I think it's around 1,000 euros for a week. You get 100 off if you have a membership with Nomad Fly, which is pretty cool. And other things like that. I mean, Fly Onward, which is the like ticket rental, so you can prove that you're leaving the country. There's 30% off with those guys, which is really cool. There's heaps of deals like that, and those are all going to be in that kind of online area, and obviously on the Facebook group as well. And I recently I had a promotion going for the first few people that signed up. That is finished, so it's $49 for like a one-off payment. And but for your viewers, Dan, I wanted to put together a page. I haven't finished putting it together yet, but I will about 10 minutes after we're done here. And it's just going to be it's going to be half price, so $25.
Oh, killer.
For the membership forever, which is really great. And also, if people did sign up annually, I'm going to cancel the annual fee as well, so you will have just already paid your membership.
Oh, wow. So wait, to clarify that, does that mean it's a one-time payment? Is that a lifetime membership, or what's the deal?
Yeah, it's a lifetime. So the Facebook group is going to be available to members only still, and
okay.
And the 12-week course is going to be available to members as well. And then they'll just be like, after that, just usual tips and emails and stuff like that.
Cool. And, I'll endorse you here because like the ebook is probably worth the $25 alone. I mean, I know it is. People pay more than that for ebooks that I've gotten less out of. But for me, what I really personally, my favorite is the group. Like asking people for, like, I've already been in there asking like, hey, are there any local airlines in Australia? Like we talked about earlier, a place to bounce ideas off people and kind of ask questions is super valuable for me. So, I mean, I think the ebook's worth the $25. The group, the Facebook private group, is worth more than $25 to me. It already has been. So yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. And I actually didn't know you were going to give our people half off. So thank you. That's really cool. Yeah.
So I'm going to put the link in I'll send it to you, but it will be nomadfly.me/ODonlife.
Okay, cool. And if you forget that, I'll put that in the show notes like we talked about, which if you go to odonlife.com, like maybe you're listening to this on Stitcher, who knows, you're on YouTube, odonlife.com. This is episode number 17, and I'll have a link to all Beck's stuff, and we'll put that special link for the discount up there too. So
cool.
Yeah. Cool. So any last second things I forgot, Beck, or it seems like we're kind of naturally coming to the end here?
Yeah, no, I think that covers it. If you have any questions for me, I am on Twitter at ninjapreneur. So have fun trying to spell that, or just email me at beck@nomadfly.me. Yeah, I'm like available if anyone wants to ask me any questions.
Cool. Great. Thank you again. Thank you for the discount and sharing all your info. I really appreciate it. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. And again, go over there to odonlife.com, episode number 17, and we'll link to all this stuff. And Beck, I wish you all the best with this new blossoming business. Thank you for all the help you've given me so far.
No worries. Thanks, Dan.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one, Beck.